they're out there suffering in the cold just as much as any of us. Just because they're not wet doesn't mean they're not giving up what they'd rather be doing on a normal Saturday in November, right? So that's definitely the goal, and trying to be supportive of their endeavors outside of what we do. But it's just, I'm not that kind of person that likes to draw attention in that way, like to be selfish for that long. So it's definitely one of the more challenging parts, I think, of that race is to ask other people for help, like in such a big way.
No whining.
No quitting.
Overcome.
Community. Teamwork.
Tough Mudder.
Tougher together.
Hey, to all my Mudder family, OCR brothers and sisters, and to you listening right now. You are my people too. We do share a world. And I am your mirror man and host of Tough Mudder's No Excuses podcast, Sean Corvell. In this episode, we are talking with Hanna Carta. I had the honor of watching Hanna participate in this year's World Toughest Mudder 2022 event, where she finished number 1 female in her age group, 4 among the women competitors, and 23rd overall. Hanna is one of our top athletes in this ultra endurance OCR world. And like most of the elite running athletes I've met, super cool person. On the ultrarunning.com page, you can see a list of the events she's competed in over the years, and you'll see that she is a perennial contender, which is why I see why she's in performance shape like all year round. We discuss her training regimen and how she chooses the races she competes in. She talks about her experience at the World Toughest Mudder event, the mental and physical challenge a 24-hour endurance race poses to a runner. We also learn how the watch Samsung provided her held up in the race. And as I like to do with my guests, we get to know her a little more personally. She talks about her appreciation for the support she gets from the people in her circle. Her husband's a heck of an athlete too. And it sounds to me like they are a vital source of inspiration for each other. She's also a youth coach and the perfect person to instill those invaluable qualities to help kids be their best in competition and life. The very same qualities I see in her, whether I'm watching her compete in the 24-hour World Toughest Mudder event or just kicking it with her, having a fun chat. We had a fun chat. I felt an instant buddy connection with Hanna. She's a very amiable person. She's got drive. She's got grit. She's just awesome. Here is my conversation with Hanna Carta on No Excuses. I'm looking over here, Hanna, at my computer where it has a list of all the races you've done like this year, 2022, and then it has the 2021 ones, and holy cow. And they're not just like, run around the block, a sprint, or a light, a holiday run or anything. I mean, these are serious runs that you are doing and doing well in placing. So congratulations for that. Congratulations for just a week ago. I'm talking to you now. We had our World Toughest Mudder event, 24-hour event. You were absolutely awesome in that also. I loved seeing you every time you came through the finish line. So congratulations for that also, and you did get our number 1 female in your age group, 25 to 29, if you don't mind me saying. Like I said, you look like a 12-year-old, so let people know we're not cheating here. And with all that being said, Hanna, thank you so much for being on this No Excuses podcast. A week removed from the World Toughest Mudder event. How are you feeling?
Oh, first of all, thank you for all the kind words, Sean. And the honor is really mine to be on your podcast. I'm such a huge fan. But I am finally starting to feel like a normal human again. It has been a rough week, but I'm sure it's been for all of us, including you, who was up in the wee hours of the night cheering us all on. And we all, the nice part, I really like looped events, and WTM falls into that category, but things do get loopy in looped events. So we're still kind of just finally, today was the first day I haven't needed a nap yet. So we're finally kind of getting back to normal. So that's good.
Yeah, so that's just not me, because I've been falling asleep watching shows, and fortunately in my wife's arms, and all that stuff. But I am drained. That event is more than what we think, mentally as much as physically. Your recovery, what were the aches and pains when you were done?
Oof. Well, I was so tired. Like I think I talked briefly to you on Monday, just how I really like gave that everything that I had. So as soon as I was done, it felt like I'm breathing in and there's electricity. You're just on fumes. And so that was the biggest thing. And then with that comes the emotional fatigue where you just feel like you're kind of on the edge of tears all the time for no reason. Like you're in the grocery store and checking out and people are like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just look like I'm crying over I can't find my credit card. It's no big deal. So things like that. But right now, besides, well, I had like a little cold or like flu-y thing. I think that's just from the, what's it called? See, this is the other thing. We're at a loss for words sometimes. The immune system going into overdrive kind of. So it wasn't any long enough for it to be like a real cold or anything. It was just like, oh, your immune system's recovering kind of thing. And then now I'm dealing with my left patellar tendon on my knee. It was really angry during. And then like the right lateral attachment of my T-band on my right leg down into my foot, my toe. I think I like really messed up my wrist, things like that. And then the stupid Satan's mustache gave the worst chafing burn. That is the worst obstacle. If I see another cargo net taped to the ground, I'm going to light it on fire.
That one was tighter than I can remember too. I know last year, via Kyle, our CEO then, he did one that was on a hill to go uphill, and that was pretty tight and people were cursing him for that one. But I was there and I saw that one that you're talking about we had this year where you literally, people were helping each other just to get through that thing, starting off in the dark crawling with this heavy net weighing down on you and then coming out with obstacles. I think it was like, tires or something in it also. But when you're tired, that's a lot.
And it's just one of those ones where like it feels like it's suffocating you because it's pulling on your bib, it's pulling on your chip. And I did it last year and it happened again this year where I went in it by myself. And then it got so bad that I literally just waited in the middle of it until other people showed up to help me because it's that horrible. And then you get out and I would get out and I'd literally be like, it's okay. We're not going to die. It's okay. We're not going to die. Because that's how that one feels. You're like, I'm suffocating. Horrible. It's the worst thing ever.
See, and I like that you said that because you know me, I'm big on the whole community of Tough Mudder and being out there on the course, how people are helping each other out, even during the competition events. So I like hearing it in that sense. I hope it didn't slow you down too much, in the other sense of it. But, for anybody that's listening that don't know what we're talking about, World Toughest Mudder is Tough Mudder's competition event, 24-hour competition event. You're out there on a course, a mud course, running it, 5-mile loop. And it has 20 some odd obstacles that you're doing. 20 some odd obstacles and a rattlesnake. And, you just, you're out there for the whole 24 hours. You're running through a lot of people nonstop. We set up an area where you can have people that help you. We call our pit area where you have your tent and all the nutrition and dry clothes, warm clothes, whatever it is that you need, you have that you can go to during the event. We get runners that come there that are just elite athletes like Hanna I'm talking to right here. And we also get people that are coming there that are people you'd see at a church, or at Disneyland or someplace. And they're just out there looking for their personal best, and running for what I've said before, exercising demons that are going on in their lives elsewhere, outside of that course also. But, with you, how many times have you done a World Toughest Mudder, Hanna?
Other events I've done, Sean, you have sent us out the gate and I've gotten to see you every lap. So I'm very spoiled in that sense, but yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. And I would say even the people that, whatever air quotes you want to put around the word elite, like we're exercising our own demons too. Do not worry. There's plenty of demons being exercised as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. And one of the things I had said at this event too, that I've said in conversation with people is that what I love about these type of OCR events, obstacle course racing events, is I'm a fan of the Tour de France, of biking and all that, and any kind of bike. I'm a fan of sports. I love seeing people at their best. But I remember them saying that it's really great how close the fans can get to their favorite athletes, because they're standing on the side at these events, sometimes in the way. But in this one, they're actually on the course with you and they get to help you. And I've seen you guys, elite runners, I've seen you guys out there helping them during competition, and encouraging people. So that's what I love about this event. Now I've seen, like I said, if you go to, people that are listening again, if you go to the website, or the web, and on this particular one, I'm looking at ultrarunning.com where it lists all the events that you were a part of. You are in some serious competition. What is that drive to do these, I guess, extreme competition events? How would you describe them?
Sean, I think you and I philosophically align in a lot of ways. Like, I think, you mentioned like how normal people go out and get their 50 miles, right, at WTM. And like, to me, that's like one of my favorite insanely awesome parts about that event. And then it's the same thing here, like you talk about how, doing things, giving your best and stuff. I really have no talent. The only reason that you can like throw me in that category with the moniker of elite is because I'm just somehow stubborn enough and more willing every time to like throw my name at things that I have no business doing, and just embarrassing myself over and over again. So if you have my ultra sign up, then that means like you're seeing like, oh, Broken Arrow. Okay. Broken Arrow is a 3-day stage race in the mountains of Tahoe in California. And I live in Illinois. So things like that or all these ski resort, this was like kind of the year of ski resort races. So even the ones that aren't on ultra sign up, I went to Vernon for the Spartan Ultra on a ski resort, OCRWC ski resort. I suck at descending technical downhills. So this year it was just like, okay, well, let's go see how many technical downhill courses that I can try and attack. And kind of just like see if I could get better at it. And there's things out there that are stimulating. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. But the only reason I've been able to qualify and find myself in elite heats is because I was that person who walked a Spartan sprint, a 5K, no different than a Tough Mudder 5K, and then decided to just keep doing it and figuring out, okay, I'm not good at this, but if I keep putting myself through this ringer, I'll have some sort of proficiency with them. Which is why Tough Mudder and WTM, I think, is my one domain where I felt the fitness and athleticism. That's all part of it, right? You can't do it without that. But it's more about, can you smile when you've been hopping around on a bouncy ball for the last 24 hours and people are, doing there's people in unicorn costumes and it's 36 degrees out and you're wet. And so my real only talent is saying oh, sure, that sounds super hard. Let's try it. So that was kind of this year was just really trying really hard things to kind of prepare me for WTM, which I decided was going to be my A race of the year for a number of reasons, some of which I mentioned, but so hard stuff like that is really just about putting myself through the ringer, I think, more than anything else, not being afraid to fail, because I'm really good at failing too.
Yeah, which is as important to drive as any that's out there for us. The bouncy ball that you referred to was one of the penalties for if you couldn't complete a certain obstacle. And we had you guys out there on those fun bouncy balls, which you'll probably see on television. It's that time of year to buy gifts and toys for kids. Yeah. And once again, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you did tired. That thing's as much a challenge as anything else out there on that course, bouncing up and down on that wet, cold. How was your bouncy ball technique?
Oh, it was good. So last year was a penalty too, and I hadn't done it because last year that was actually an obstacle I used bands on a little bit, bypass bands, but then I also was able to get that obstacle. This year, it seems like only 2 or 3 people ever successfully got the obstacle where that was the penalty, because not necessarily chunky monkey, but the obstacle before it got your hands really muddy. So it made it really challenging, which was interesting. But it's the first time I got on it, I'm like, man, this is super fun. And then you realize how long it was and how much it hurt your quads. So that was a tough one. The technique of it was really, I think, more about mobility than anything else. Like, you had to be mobile, which I'm usually pretty good at. But when you're on 40-mile legs, that's always a question up in the air. But that's another cool part about this event, too, is like, as much as I like to say, you know, like, I'm good at failing, like, a lot of those are all learning experiences. And that's one of the best parts of WTM, is it's a 24-hour race where you get to learn. And since it's looped, you're repeating. So like that penalty, or the penalty where you put the 2x4s on your feet, we figured those out as a group, you know, over 24 hours. You're like, hey guys, if you push your heels into the ground, they stay on better. You're gonna be able to get through it. So that's really cool too, is you're talking with people you don't know about something as dumb as like, how can I get through this penalty that's been concocted by someone trying to make fun of us to some degree, you know, these race directors trying to give us a hard time. And then as a group, you kind of figure it out and hack it. So I really love that about this race too.
Yeah, a lot of that race has to do with adapting too out there, whether it be to the weather, which got pretty darn cold. Wasn't our coldest event, but if we didn't have those other two cold, maybe three cold events, that would have been our coldest event. Does that play a part on you?
Oh yeah. So I know I get cold. Like I said, I'm from Illinois, so I deal with the awful winters. We get those negative 10-degree days where you got to suit up and go outside and brave it. So I'm familiar with cold, but definitely not that wet of a cold. Being in and out of dunk walls and then still having to forward progress is really challenging. I did add a race to my calendar this past year in January that I DNF'd, so I'm not afraid of the DNF. That was called Frozen Otter, and they said it was a good year too, kind of like you're saying. It was cold, but it was a good year, and I still wasn't able to keep warm in that race. So I was a little nervous coming in, but I thought I planned my gear right. I had really good neoprene, so I was happy with that. I come from a Midwest family that believes there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad gear. And I invite them to come try WTM next year. But the gear definitely helped, and we learned some strategies on the fly. Like, someone told me, hey, if you're cold, have someone put warm water down the back of your wetsuit. And I'm like, this is genius. That really helped. I put it on my fingers when my fingers weren't working, my toes. And then another interesting thing was that I wasn't expecting, because if you're not going through WTM, any normal 24-hour race, the rule is, you know, if it's going to be cold like that, stay dry. Because if you're dry, you're warm, right? So when that goes out the window, it's like, okay, what do we do now? So besides the warm water, like on the fingers and on the back at the pit, there was a point at which it switched out on the course where the water temperature was warmer than the air temperature. So as your fingers are locking up, you're like, okay, no, actually, I want to get my hands wet, because it's actually how I'm going to keep them warm instead of the other way around. And then it switched back once the sun came up. So like you said, the adaptive demands of that race and like the mental part of it is really interesting to me. It was cool to learn on the fly and to be able to use that information while you're doing the thing.
Yeah, and I believe it got like down into the low 30s Fahrenheit, maybe even the 20s even out there. I even felt it at the finish start line, where like a breeze would come through, because it was breezier out there on the course. But when a breeze would come through at the finish start line, it was like, whoa, you know, it's like a ghost ran through you, you know, or death ran through you or something. So well done out there. One of the things, this is one of the good things about experience too. And one of the cool things about people sharing their experience is that what I've noticed over the years is, even if you have the right equipment and like your neoprenes and all that stuff, if you don't put that on at the right time, it's hard to regulate your body temperature also. So through experience, again, like you said, that plays a big part of it. I think you answered this already, but in competition, like for this event and for any event that you're a part of in general, are you more crush the competitors or personal best?
I think that really varies on the competition. I really think it does. And I think I think I'm more crush the competition when it's in training. I think I use that as a tool to like amp up the intensity of training. Like I love group fitness for a number of reasons, self-program. But two is the fact that like when you're in a CrossFit class and there's someone there next to you and they may be a whole set ahead of you, but when you're kind of going rep for rep with them, it just gives you another person to like kind of dangle the carrot out in front of you. With this race in particular, and I think because it meant so much to me and because I really had my eyes set on it from the beginning of the year, I really wanted to be focus on yourself, like focus on what I'm doing. And that was for a number of reasons. I cared about the outcome of this race a lot. So I really wanted to make sure that there was no room for other variables to distract my focus, to take my energy, and to change what I wanted to do. And I also think it's because in this race, as you know, when you give everything you have, usually you're going to feel pretty happy with yourself at the end of the day. Like you can't control so much out there. And if there's a better athlete than you out there, there's nothing you can do. Someone has a better day than you. Someone's a better athlete. Someone can run faster than you. There's nothing you can do in that moment. So that's why I say like in training, when you still have ability to change things, to more manipulate things and still have an impact down the road, I think I'm more like, I'll crush you, let's go, like get all competitive. But when it comes to race day, it's like, I'm going to give my best and make sure I'm cheering everybody else on. It's us against the course, like that simple. But in training, for sure, I'm that guy.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier before I started recording this, and I told you, every time I see you, you look like you're in top shape. You look fit. Okay, like you're ready for, to take on the champ tomorrow, and part of also what's a big part of these Tough Mudder events and World Toughest Mudder is that upper body strength. You talk about training, and I said to you earlier before we started recording too that I saw on the web you involved with CrossFit. What's your involvement with CrossFit?
So I honestly wasn't even into CrossFit until COVID. And it's funny because running I wasn't into as hardcore as I am until COVID. But when I was really into ninja and I was into obstacle course racing. But as soon as everything shut down, it was like, okay, what do we do now? So my husband was a runner and I was like, okay, well, if he could do this, I should start running. And then it was, okay, there's this other gym that's open close to my house in spite of COVID. And they have some OCR and it's really a CrossFit gym, but they have some OCR. So I called up my good friend, also Sean. We're good friends now. And he owns that gym. And it's funny because he came out to WTM this year, Sean, I think for the third time. Yeah. And his goal this year was to make sure he made it through the cold. And he did that. So he was right next to us on Main Street. He battled through the cold. He has this big shiner because one of the obstacles hit him in the eye. But he got me into CrossFit and I have absolutely loved it ever since. Like to the point that my husband and I went down on our way to WTM. We stopped in all athletes with such range. And I don't have anywhere near that much range, but the strength training that we get to do in CrossFit is so beneficial. And then even for this race, like leading in training, like it was so hard. I talk about the cold. I really wanted to make sure that I was prepared for the cold. So I went out of my way to put more weight on. And so some of that was with strength training. Some of that was with just eating a ton, which was fun. I always enjoy that. But like really tried to put a good layer of fat on. And luckily, like I had this watch, the Samsung watch that kind of helped me like track the my body composition, which is something I really don't normally care about. But for this race, I wanted to have an extra layer of fat to make sure I was ready for the cold. And I think I was. But like you said, you mentioned that not just the gear, not just the knowledge, but then the execution, right? The implementation. So my big error was I didn't eat enough during the race to calorically account for the cold. So I didn't do everything I wanted to do, but because of the execution element, but it was really, really important to make sure that you're strong coming in, the upper body stuff. And then I was warm coming in with a little extra layer of fat. So I was able to track that coming in. So that was good.
Yeah, you mentioned Samsung, and I had the honor of working with them at it was one year when we were doing our events in Canada, and you got to sort of sponsor them, represent them. You had their watch, is that right, out there on the course?
This guy's really cool.
That's it?
Yeah.
How was it? How was the watch?
It's great. It's purple. It's really, really pretty. I'm a big fan of the purple. And the headphones match too. But it did a good job. Like I said, the two big things I used it for leading in were tracking the body composition and obviously like all the running and training like that. But the body composition and the stress level, because the stress levels, I really wanted to make sure like all the stress is going to come on race day. Let's limit that stress beforehand. So those two things, which I don't normally track to great detail, were great to have the ability to track those things to make sure I was prepared.
Yeah. Good people again. The props to the Samsung people. I loved when I was doing work with them. Now you mentioned too, preparing for this event and all your events. Are you working with a trainer? Are you have any special nutritional program? What is your preparation for all these events?
Sean hit me with multiple questions at once. And and I warned him, guys, I like to talk. This is dangerous. Okay.
Yeah, talk. I like to listen.
I'm mostly plant-based. So actually, I'm all plant-based. I say mostly for those accidents that happen that are not intentional. And that has been over the years. Like when I first started getting into shape, first started doing Ninja, like I lost like maybe 35 pounds a couple years ago. And it was, people were like, that's not a lot. Well, walk around with a 35-pound kettlebell all day. And then, it's more than I needed. So it was really good in that sense. But then started to realize like, okay, if I want to do these longer events, these things where I'm really putting my body through the ringer, like I want to limit inflammation as much as possible. And you talk about how people look on the outside, like, to me, how you look on the inside is the most important. Anything that comes on the outside is extra. But like, I want to be able to do this stuff well for a long time and have fun. Like I said, I'm in the learning process. I'm still at the point where I'm trying to beat myself up and like fail so I can fail upwards and kind of learn. But if I don't nutritionally support that, yes, with macros, you need your fat, you need your protein, you need your carbs. But like, people forget fiber. People forget, like, where do you get your protein? Where do you get your fiber? So fiber is really big. And then the micronutrients too, like, especially when, I have a 250 miler coming up. So with you're talking about like 5 days of work where you're putting your body to the absolute limit, like it needs to operate optimally in a way that it can allocate its resources towards whatever you're doing. So it's funny, like people who got cold and didn't realize why they got cold. It's like, well, maybe your nutrition wasn't on point, or like for me, my nutrition wasn't on. So then the other systems don't work the way they're supposed to. So I think that for me, and everybody's different. So this is not like a recommendation. The plant-based diet really helps me to do things more intuitively, like to not stop and count calories, to not stop and focus on macros, and feel all around better. Obviously that changes for other people, but for me, like I pretty much get to eat as much as I want, which is awesome. And then avoid lots of inflammation along the line. Obviously I don't kid myself that the vegan Ben & Jerry's is good for me, like a regular Ben & Jerry's wouldn't be. And I definitely indulge, but in the grand scheme of things, it helps me. Training wise for this race, it's so hard because there's so many elements to a race like this, right? Like the big ones that come are the cold, okay? The mileage and then the obstacles. Those are three huge ones. And when you have a race that's a gargantuan undertaking like this, or like I said, I have a 250 miler coming up, or there's some hundreds and things like that. Me and my husband, we're not coached, so we never have been. So we've got to make all our own mistakes and learn from them the hard way. We've been helped a lot. So I know Anthony Kunkel from this weekend, right? I'm sure you got to meet him in the braids. So he and his group out in Durango, and then do you remember Miguel Medina? Do you know Miguel?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So another guy, Nicole Miracle, and that's like you said about the community, like all these people have gone out of their way to help and give advice and guide. and none of that is lost on me. But for the most part, like comprising our training plans is just me and David. And so we like to train some of those elements like separately. So I made it to 2 infinities with you, one in Chicago and then one in Minnesota this year. And that was nice because with the 2 8-hour things, we got 16 hours of training for this race instead of 12 with just one toughest like I had last year. I'm hoping to do both this year so we get closer to that 20-hour mark before we hit the 24. But then I run tons of volume. So I'm, like I said, once COVID hit, I started running a dailies. So we're at 10 miles a day, and it's now, after 2021 has been broken up into actually like some more walking mileage, just because I suck at walking, and that's something you need in some of these longer races, is the ability to walk in high quality, high pace efficiently. But so volume running has been big, the CrossFit and the strength. And then we did obstacle course races like OCRWC, which is an endurance challenge when you're doing all 3 races, all 3 days with different obstacles. And then things like the cold, like I said, I did a race in January that was really cold to kind of gear test some stuff. So we like to break the things up in separate elements. So then you're also not taking the brunt of those 3 things of stress at the same time. And then you can kind of like isolate those variables and learn from them individually. So then you can kind of like, when you need to put the whole piece together, it's a little easier. That said, like I said, I made a major mistake, but we'll learn from that too. And then kind of just really the other side that's really important about this race is the mental side. So, and I think like that was the hardest to train this year. And like I said, I went out, and even though you're like, what do ski resorts have to do with WTM in Pensacola, Florida? And the answer is I suck at ski resorts. I suck at running technical downhills. I suck at climbing. I'm not good at those really technical elements, and they take so much time, and it's slow and it's frustrating. So this year, mentally, to prepare, I did really hard things that weren't in my comfort zone, that were uncomfortable. And then it had a twofold effect that when things got hard at WTM, it was easy to say, okay, let's go get them. I'm steel-willed here. I'm able to do this. And then also, because those things were so different from WTM, technical climbing, these gorgeous views, whatever, no big deal. But this was a flat, fast, fun obstacle course race where you're not necessarily suffering in the same way. So I got to embrace that as an opportunity. Like, oh, I love running these flats. These are gorgeous. Look at these pine needles. This is better. So it was allowed me to like be more appreciative once it was there.
I think that one, when you're doing the courses, like you said, the ski courses, those are some of my favorite events. Tough Mudder events are at the ski courses up in the mountains and all that, because I think that this sport lends itself to a relationship with the environment, and especially when you're getting to that point where, again, you're exhausted, where you're physical and your mental and your spiritual becomes one. There is a connection, I think, with the environment, almost like you're out there dancing with it, certainly appreciating it. Yeah. So I think that part is important. Also, I have never had anybody say to me that the walking part is important. I've never heard that before.
Sean, it's so important. I have a 6-day race coming up over New Year's. And we did the 72-hour last year, and then we did the 48-hour in Milwaukee in the summer of last year. And you show up, and I said they must view us like all like little sacrificial lambs when we first show up. They all know it's our first time, because you see these people go out and try and PR their 50K as they're starting a 48-hour race. And you're like, oh, wow, they're going to blow themselves up. And I was one of those people. But then you see these people like Olivier Lebond, who I don't know if you know who he is, but he's phenomenal. No. And he's the 48-hour American record holder for the amount of mileage accumulated in 48 hours. And awesome. Marissa Lysak, who's on Team USA for 100 mile and 24 hour. And they're all there less than a quarter mile away from you, because it's a quarter mile track. And you see them like walking every 8th lap. And you're like, what are they doing? And then later you're like, oh yeah, that's what they were doing. Like they were not dying. They were walking because it's so important. So the walking is really important in anything ultra. So we're working on it.
Learn to pace yourself. That's as important as anything else out there. Also, I hear you saying we when you're talking about going to events, and it gets me back to like with the World Toughest Mudder, you're allowed to have a pit crew, people that are out there supporting you when you come back in and encouraging you to. Sometimes I even see them out there on the course, like encouraging their runners. Who is your pit crew?
So when I say we, I'm usually referring to my husband because we go everywhere together and it's really awesome. So it's great to be supported in like so closely in that way. And he signs up for whatever stupid things I sign up for. So that's good. But no, in this weekend, the we definitely included. So we had my friend Sophia, who I met online through an OCR like message board, which is so cool because you don't know these people. But like you said, this community brings people together. So that's one of the very fortunate people. And I would be remiss if I didn't include my buddy Brian. Came last year. He was from that same OCR message board, and he just volunteered out of the blue to come crew for me last year. And he raced this year, so he was part of the fun. So we enjoyed having him out there. But then it was my friend who we kind of figured out I've known since we were like in 7th grade, which is insane. But we went to high school together, Eva Brundage. And I call her my corner woman, Sean, because she's an MMA fighter. And last year I would come through the pit and you just hear her screaming, so excited on my behalf. And it's to the point where people be like, whoa, is she okay? Like, what's wrong? And just that kind of enthusiasm where, you know, like I know if anything goes wrong, she's like, you know, put smelling salts in my face and tell me to get the fuck back out there. And I'm like, I love it. And then the best man at our wedding, Jimmy, who is this just giant character of a man. And he's awesome. And the thing about him and about Eva and Sophia too, Sophia's a little quieter and like knows the scene better, but Eva and Jimmy are the people who like, if I told you in the middle of the race, I needed like someone to go cut down a tree and to give it to me, like they would make that happen. Like I need a goat. They would like find it. I don't know. They're those kind of people that just get stuff done and like are go-getters. So, and I'm sure their hands are all sore from going through layers of neoprene the entire time. But yeah, I'm still like you asked how we're doing after the race. And that's one of the biggest things I'm struggling with is like, just even for people like you, for the race staff, for the volunteers, for my crew, for all these people who are online, like super kind and supportive. I just don't even know how to express the gravity of my gratitude, just how immense it is, because again, we're all destroyed, I think, after the event, but we quickly forget that just because of how much you feel that community from the second you step on site on Friday and just like overwhelmed by how awesome everyone is. And you just feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And so I still am struggling to find the words and the ways to thank all those people involved. And that's hard.
Yeah. I don't know if you can. I mean, I always related to, because all these events and any sporting event, competitive event, I feel personally these are microcosms of life in general. And these are how we exercise our survival tools and instincts and all that kind of stuff, which we will be using in the challenges that we take on life off the course or whatever your competition is. And just like with the pit crew, I feel like what's huge about them is they don't have to be out there. You know, they're not out there to win anything. They're out there in support, in the large sense of the word, giving service to others, which is huge. And I've always felt like I wanted to give props to those people. Like I know people that are going through, whether it be a medical problem, you know, or whatever the challenge is. And they have those people that love them and their friends that are supporting them through that challenge too. And we're talking about in real life, that they don't have to. It's easy for them to just say, no, I'm out of here. I don't want to deal with this. But whatever that connection is that keeps them involved, that's huge. I know when I've been in that position where I trying to support, doing my best to support someone, it sucks because then I feel just so helpless. I almost feel like I wish it was happening to me, because then I'd feel like I'd have more control of it that way. So I don't know how what to say other than thank you to those people. Or I think the best way is kind of like what you did at the event. You show them your best. That's the appreciation. You show them your best.
And someone said, like, oh, when your race blew up, like, which it did, right? Like lap 9. It's like, what do you do when your goal that you originally had goes away? And I was like, well, I got to keep doing these people out here that work so hard for me proud. Like, I have to keep giving everything that I have, because it would be a disrespect to the work they've put into this point to get us here to not, right? So, and again, like, it's so hard. You said, people thank you. How are you after 24 hours? It's the same thing with the pit crew. Like, they're out there suffering in the cold just as much as any of us. Just because they're not wet doesn't mean they're not giving up what they'd rather be doing on a normal Saturday in November, right? So that's definitely the goal, and trying to be supportive of their endeavors outside of what we do. But it's just, I'm not that kind of person that likes to draw attention in that way, like to be selfish for that long. So it's definitely one of the more challenging parts, I think, of that race is to ask other people for help, like in such a big way.
Yeah. Well, but isn't that the same in life? It's hard for some people to ask other people for help, until you I guess you hit rock bottom, and then hopefully you can, you don't have to wait that long, in my opinion. Again, share that challenge, what you're going through. That's what this community thing's all about. What was your goal going in?
Oh, Sean, it was bad. I was trying to do something I had never done before. I really wanted to run 100 miles. I wanted the orange jacket, in large part just because my favorite color is orange, but also because one of my goals this year in 2022 was to run 100 miles in less than 24 hours. I'd never done that flat, never mind like add obstacles. But I honestly thought like adding obstacles actually might help me. Like, I think I'm a better compromise runner than I am a straight runner. So it was still in my head, made sense. And I was really think I was on pace until I realized like I had been under fueling, and then I needed to stop, address those caloric needs in a big way, and make sure that the situation didn't sprawl more out of hand than it could have. So that was, and it was hard, Sean, because I really didn't leave leading up to it any space in my brain for anything else. It was like you asked, oh, are you the competitor on race day? It was, I don't care about anyone else's race. I'm not even going to set a B goal for myself, because I want 100 and I want that to be the only thing in my mind, fully understanding that like the course could not lend itself to that, because we've seen that before. But I really didn't want to leave any alternatives. And so when it did happen and we realized, okay, 100's off the table, it was really like, I didn't take any time to be like mourn that and be upset about that. So now this week that's been part of the wounds that we've been nursing, is like mourning that loss of like such a big goal. And then the worst part was like, I told people about it before. Like, I put the pressure on myself to some degree, which, seems regrettable now, but simultaneously I understand why. And I'm appreciative for that pressure I put on myself. But yeah, I think it's too early for me to say like what's going to happen next year, and I'm still too far in the pain element, but I really did like think I put the right preparation in, and my fitness was better to do what I wanted to do. It's just like you said, you got to execute. Execution is important. So hopefully we can do a little better on that end.
Oh, you have lots of time for those goals. You're 12 years old. Don't worry about it.
Yes, right.
And then that thing where you're telling people, I do that with stuff too, and I'm telling myself through them also. I'm committing myself. And I think there's nothing wrong with that, because if you don't reach that goal, it's respecting just how difficult it is to achieve that goal. So yeah, it gives you something to aim for still. Let's give props to, it was Chris, I believe, Chris Roglowski. Am I saying her name right?
Yes, you nailed it.
Good. She was
Most
our
people
first.
don't. So you did awesome.
Well, cool. She was our first female to ever hit the 100-mile mark at the World Toughest Mudder event. She killed it. Her and her pit, they were awesome also. But there's a lot of variables to do that, and one part is the competition that's pushing you out there. So props to all you guys out there for that achievement too. What was your hardest? Because I look at you again, and I had said it before with CrossFit, and you just look so fit. Upper body strength on these obstacles is an important part, which I would look at you just by the optics. I'm saying you have an advantage over a lot of the runners out there. What is the tough challenge for you on these courses?
Ooh, I'm still such a nascent runner, and people are going to laugh at that, but in these upper levels of these sports, we call it it's a different sport. I always use the analogy Dina Castor. Do you know who Dina Castor is, Sean?
No.
So she, for a long time, was the American record holder in the marathon. She got a bronze medal in, I think it was Tokyo, one of the Olympics. And so her book is great, Sean. You should read it. It's really good. It's called Let Your Mind Run by Dina Castor. Phenomenal, just about all the mentality. But she ran, when she broke that record, she ran 26 miles faster than I can run one. By minutes. Okay. So, and again, my only claim to any fame that I have right now is my grittiness. And I can run when we're talking about 24, 48, 72, 6 day. Those are my events where I do well, mostly because I'm one of the few 20-something women willing to do them. Most people are yeah, I'm not dedicating 6 days of my life to running around a 1-mile track or 24 hours of my life to running around a 5-mile obstacle course where I'm going to get muddy, cold, and wet. So I think the upper body stuff is all still coming. It's funny, you said CrossFit. In any CrossFit gym, I show up and I'm the runner. In most races, I show up and I look like the CrossFitter. So it's I'm in that weird middle niche. The obstacles they put out there that were really challenging this year was Chunky Monkey. And that was, again, not because of the obstacle itself. I loved the modifications they made to that obstacle. They made it less strength-based and more technique-based because you could stand. So for those of you that know Tough Mudder and that weren't there, what they did was instead of using the ascending monkey bars for Funky Monkey, they hung straps with tires that were long enough that you could stand on the tire. So it was tire, and then they had a ninja grip, which was a banana, which I loved for Funky Monkey. That's awesome. I appreciate the jokes here, Tough Mudder course designers. And so it was and a banana's not a great grip, but it's not the worst because the curvature makes it closer to a ring than a nunchuck. So it's not just a straight vertical hold. You get a little bit of give. So it was tire that you could stand on, banana, tire that you could stand on, banana, tire that you could stand on, banana. And so I love that because it was more about swing. It was more about technique. But because it was right after an obstacle where your hands were covered in mud, no one got it. I think there were 3 people I know that got it in the entire night. And there's 1,000 competitors, right? So that was really challenging. I fell so hard, Sean, off of feet spin. I took one attempt. I just missed a grab. And I'm okay, this is an obstacle. It's on the ground. I'm not going to get wet. Let's go retry. Put my gloves on, maybe to get a better grip, and instead peeled right off so bad, fell on my back, that the medic came over and was are you okay? And I was down for a good minute and a half. No, I'm fine. I just literally cannot get up yet. That took my soul, a part of me with it when I smacked on the ground. And then I got up, shook everything off, took the gloves off, knew what adjustment I needed to make, which is go lock off a little bit on it because it was still wet and muddy overnight. And then I made it through the obstacle, and he was wow, that was awesome. You fell so hard. And I'm like I said, I'm just too stupid to stop trying. But I really liked that they were more technique based. Like a lot of the obstacles this year, like even something as simple as feet spin as a rig, like they weren't just about can you be as strong as possible through them. And we didn't really even have a carry this year. We had a carry last year. But I really appreciate the technical elements of the Tough Mudder obstacles that I don't think get enough credit, because then it's challenging not just, your strength, like all these guys that can muscle up and lock off through everything. It's like, do you know how to do what you're doing efficiently, effectively? Because the efficiency is what matters when you've done it 10, 12 times. So I think the strength could always be better. But I think my biggest struggle is like, I'm not fast enough yet. But we're working on it.
Yeah. But you have as much grit as anybody that's competing out there. So you got that feather in your cap. When you were talking about the young lady that held the record for marathons, what popped into my head was I had the honor of talking with Lady Catherine Switzer, and she was on the podcast. She was the first official woman to run a marathon. She ran the Boston Marathon. She's kind of like the mother of females in marathons. And then she was very, very much involved with getting women to be in the Olympics for that sport. And there was another lady too that was out there apparently that didn't get as much attention. She was a little bit more shy and back, but Catherine's got a movie that's going to come out of her. And when I think about that stuff, it's like stuff like that to me is inevitable. It's part of our being a human being, that drive. Now, when I look again at the competitions that you sign up for and even the dates on them, okay, I'm going to ask you, how do you choose, one, the races that you are going to participate in, and two, what do you think that drive is that makes you out there doing these extreme sports, as us laymen would call it?
Well, I mean, for me, like, first of all, sitting down and making my schedule every year, these past 2 years, and then it's going the same way this year, is like one of the hardest days of the year. I coach youth basketball, and I tell all the kids that I coach that, like, coaches hate tryout day because they don't like cutting kids. No good coach I've ever met has, like, enjoyed cutting kids. It's not something we relish. It's like, okay, to tell this kid they aren't in this vision or whatever. And it's the same kind of, like, obviously it's less emotional because it's not people, it's races, but I have such a hard time with, saying no to races just because the experience element of it. Like, there's some races that I love doing, but I probably can't go back because there's another race at the same time. And WTM, unfortunately, like, falls in that category. Like, I asked my husband yesterday or a couple days ago before we registered again for next year. I was like, so are we doing this again? Like, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. It's so fun. And I'm like, yeah, we are. I love it too. I'm so sore right now, but I love it too. But then there's things like Javelina 100. Have you ever heard of Javelina 100?
No.
So that's a really cool, like, I would say it is the WTM of the trail running world because it's a 20-mile loop and it's over Halloween. It's an absolute party every single time you come back in. And obviously it's not a Sean party, so we chose WTM, but Javelina has been on my list. There's a 100-miler in the New River Valley Gorge over the same time as WTM. So, like, there's all these races that I really want to do. And now we're getting to the point where we're like looking like, okay, in 2023, in 2024, in 2025, like, we're planning years out just because there's so many things we want to do. We like to pick races, my husband and I, a number of ways. He ran a 200-miler this year, and I'm like, how'd you find out about this race? Oh, it just showed up on my Ultra sign up. Okay, that's a great reason. It was horrible to crew. Don't do that again. And then things like, oh, okay, I watched the Hard Rock coverage last year, and I'm like, man, that looks freaking gorgeous. Like, I'm in no way ready for Hard Rock, but let's add that to the back of the list. There's a 50K in Jordan, Sean. You know Jordan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go to Jordan because Petra looks incredible. Like, so that interests me. But there's also a 50K where you run to the lowest point on the planet in the Dead Sea, and then you run out of it to like the highest point in Jordan. And so it's a regular sand 50K, but that seems super cool to me. So, and a lot of people in the running world, they'll like pick like, okay, I'm a road runner, I'm a road ultra runner, I'm a road marathoner, or oh, I only like 100 milers on the trails, or I only like, loop stuff. Me, like I said, I'm too stupid to stop. So I'm at the buffet and I'm trying everything, and finding what I love and finding what I love less, and really just trying to learn from all of it. Like, only a couple races get repeat registrations from me because it's like there's so many other things to try. WTM is one of those races. Another race that's gotten me now is going to have me 3 years in a row is called Ode to Laz. It's a backyard ultra. And that's where you run 4.167 miles on the hour every hour. And that one's similar to WTM in that like the challenges are so unique and so multifaceted that it intellectually interests me. It's just like a problem to solve that's like going to take years to solve. So that one's on there. And then I really like the loop stuff. So like I said, we're going back to across the years. We did 72 hours last year. This year, we're going to do 6 days of a 1 mile loop, Sean. So anyone that's like gets bored, just send them to me. I'll talk to them. And then that's with the training. And that's like I said about training specific elements. Like I have a 250 miler coming up, and the 6 days is going to be great training just for time on feet. Just trying to element that. And then the other race that I'm still trying to convince my husband to go back to, which he's not as keen on, is there's this 70K and 100K in the mountains of Utah. And you're in Utah, right? Yes. So maybe we can link up when I convince him to go. Yeah. It's called Tushers, and it is another remote ski resort where you literally have no signal. And it was last year, Sean. It was this year, actually, where I was on the wait list for the 100K.
That would be awesome.
That race.
Yes, let me know.
I said after a weekend of ski resort races, I said, no more fucking ski resorts. And then I get an email, you're in off the wait list. And I'm like, God, okay. Oh, someone heard me. But it's so beautiful when you start before dark, like before it's sunlight out. You smell the wildflowers. It hurts in such a unique way. Like the technical, the pounding, the climbing is just soul crushing. And I think it's those races where like either it decimates you in a certain way, you see something really gorgeous or beautiful, whether that be like nature or people, or my other favorite kind of race is where the world goes away for a little while. Like when you've been walking around a 1 mile loop and nothing else matters other than like, what is for lunch today? What is Patty cooking for us today? Those are my favorite kinds of races. I think that was the question you asked, like, how do I pick races? But there was a second one. Which one did I? Okay.
Yeah, that was. Okay, and in fact, I'll even make it even more precise. The second question is, okay, we're on an elevator. Again, I get on an elevator, there you are, or any friend of yours, and they're like, hey, Hannah, what's up? We're going up or down, wherever. And before we get off that elevator, I'm going to ask you, though, I'm like, Hannah, all these awesome things that you're doing, these challenges are amazing. Why?
Why not? I mean, that's really the answer, is why not? I'm young. I don't have kids yet. I want to. I used to say, like, there are a couple things that I think you need to be a complete human being. And who am I to say that? I'm 27 years old. But I think strength is one of them. I think the ability to move on your own power. I think, some sense of knowledge of the world is really important. And I actually have this tattoo. So it's this one right here. And it's in Hebrew. It's upside down, so everybody can see it. There you go.
I was going to say, I think that's upside down.
Yeah. So, and it's my Instagram handle, and it's something we've been kind of starting to try and kind of connect people through a network. But it's Maven It's a word in Hebrew, and it means one who understands. And I got that tattoo when I was like 18. That was my first tattoo. And I said, this is a goal. This is not a state of being. I really want to understand more about the world, more about myself, more about the people around me. And I understand that I may not ever be able to fully understand. I feel like when we get closer to who we are, and understand who we are and the world around us and kind of where we fit in it, we're kinder and gentler to ourselves. And then we're a better version of ourselves for the people around us. So I think it kind of all ties back to that. It's like, I want to know. I'm curious. I want to know more about everything.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're a coach too. Tell me about your coaching.
David and I, my husband, run a youth basketball program for K through 12th graders. He does the real work and works with the K through 6th, 5th graders. Because I can't. I showed up to one day to work with him, and I'm like, man, I'm glad you do what I do and I do what I do. Because I am not great at shoe tying. Let's put it that way. And then me, I work with the 6th, 7th, sometimes 5th grade, up through high school. And so we coach what we would call like local travel basketball. We don't have any like superstars in our program. So it really comes down to working with kids and like life skills and like time management and just basic things they need to understand about how to be productive human beings. So it's really rewarding. I say it offers me three things. Relative financial stability, we could always be better, right? Scheduling, flexibility, could always have a little more, could definitely have a lot less. So I'm pretty much in control of our schedule. Or we are our own schedule, which is really nice for my sanity above all else. And then I get to positively impact lives in a small way. So those three things are really important to me. And that's why I love what I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. You guys are so important to kids too. My son, he's a junior in high school, and he didn't make the basketball team this year. He's made it every year previously, but not this year. And as a parent, it's hard to be objective. Right away we're like, oh, there's nepotism involved, there's politics involved, and all that stuff. As an objective person, I would say, oh, there's nepotism involved and there's all this politics involved. He's a talented kid, man. He's an awesome kid, but it broke his heart. And, as a parent, it's like, again, it's like, I wish it was me. I can't, I want it to be me so I can control it that way. As a coach, how do you say that to, well, you said you guys aren't into that where you're saying, oh, sorry, kid, you can't make this team. But as a coach, how do you do that?
So luckily, and I used to coach in a high school, so I don't anymore. It's just our program. So we don't cut anyone, which is great. That has its benefits. That said, I do get freshmen that have never touched a basketball before. And it's like, okay, this is going to be a tough one. But at the same time, like it's, my job is important to me because when I was that age, when I was in high school, it just felt like every turn someone was telling you that your opinions didn't matter, that like you didn't have perspective, that you didn't understand because you were 13, 14, 15. And so when I explained it to the kids, when I explained it to people, just randomly that we're having conversations with, I'm like, your son, he's a junior, so he's 16, correct? So he's 17. Been working 17. So he's probably been working for close to, at minimum, the last, 10 years of his life. And he's found a passion for something. Okay. 10 years of a 17-year-old's life is more than 50%. And so when we talk about perspective and we talk about like, how can a kid have perspective when that's been his life, more than half of his life, he's worked towards this goal and probably harder at things than things he doesn't care about, like school, right? Like it's easy. I get to teach kids what they want to learn. I'm not the algebra teacher. I'm the basketball teacher, but it's like, that's the most important thing to them in that moment. And I think too often educators, and coaches and people in those situations are too quick to dismiss the emotions, the feelings of people just because they're younger than them, which is really unfortunate in my opinion, because they're just as valid and they're super important. And then the other part of it is, and this is something that I see in firsthand at my job, is like, because a lot of the times, and this is, I just finished prepping all my freshmen for their first tryouts as they go into tryouts. And I'm like, guys, there will be kids that make the team that are not as good as you because someone donated money to the school. Like, so, and that's a real thing. And so to help kids that's totally foreign to have them understand this reality, that also it's like, okay, but you're not, to not be biased at the same time. Like you said, like, of course I'm the one that thinks that because it's my son, but at the same time that may very well be a determining factor. So figuring out how to negotiate both those realities with a kid who that has never been a reality in their life before, with an adult who seems inundated with it on a daily basis and who has the perspective of like, no, this is how the real world works, is really, really hard to do. What I tell you and your son, as I would say, there's multiple ways I put this, is like, don't let one person's brief interaction with you inform your opinion about yourself, right? Like, so that person doesn't know you, doesn't know how many hours you've put in, how hard you worked to get to this point, what you've done to position yourself. And yeah, it may sting and it sucks and you have to deal with that and you have to sit with that. You can't ignore that. But at the end of the day, remember, like, it's up to you to determine how you feel about yourself. Don't let somebody else define that for you. We don't define ourselves by scoreboards or other people's opinions of us. So that's what I'd say. It does suck though, and let it suck. Tell them to. Don't try and ignore how much it sucks.
That's very cool of you. I'm going to edit this part out and send it to him so he could see that, like, this is a coach and a elite athlete. So listen to what she's saying right here. I always like to ask, I know we're running out of time here, but I always like to ask my guests, I always like to go back to their childhood days, how they grew up, what their family life was like, and especially were they always, in your case, in sports and all that. So what was little Hannah's life like, and how did she get to where she is now?
That bitch was crazy, man. Legit. Like, oh, it's so funny because, like we said, my crew has known me since 7th grade. So it was funny to kind of get perspective from her this weekend about, like, because it's kind of like WTM kind of has a high school vibe, and that, like, there's so many people, there's no way you know everybody. So she knew me in high school, and like, I was always the person that will talk to anybody. I'm not a big believer in cliques and stuff like that. Like, no matter who you are, unless you give me a reason not to, I'm going to give you the hello, right? So I've always been that way, and that's a testament to my parents and kind of growing up as the daughter of 2 corporate people, right? Like, dragged to vacations, which were really work trips. But at the same time, like, I was way too competitive. I was way, like, to a toxic level. I was so focused on things beyond my control. I was so, you just really, like, I don't know if I focused on the right things. And it's been really rewarding in recent years to kind of reshift that focus and to be so self-motivated and, like, have an individual sport where it's like you're not relying on other people for an outcome, even though you are, right? Like, you can't control the weather, you can't control what obstacles they put on the course, but becoming more at peace with that, I think, is like understanding that the uncontrollables are uncontrollable and you got to deal with what you have to deal with, and that's all you can do. So I would be happy to say, like, I've come a long way in that sense, little Hannah. But yeah, I played basketball, soccer, volleyball, all those things, and was crazy. I'm sure people can attest.
Yeah.
Even though I'm still 12, right, Sean?
Yeah. Forever you will be 12 with that glee and enthusiasm in life. So don't ever lose that. Goals coming up, future goals, immediate goals coming up.
I'd love to get 300 miles at across the years over 6 days. That would be awesome. I would love to finish. No, the next no other options is to finish Cocodona in May. David and I are going to try and qualify for High Rocks World Championships. We were supposed to do that this weekend, but it looks like we're pushing that to February. And then I want to come back and smash WTN. Those are the big ones.
That is awesome. Is David's your husband, right?
He is.
Is he around right now? I just want to see.
He is not. I think he went down to the
All
gym because he knew I'd be on the phone.
Of course he is. He's probably running 100 miles someplace. The guy sounds like a superhero. All right, Hanna, again, thank you for being on the podcast. And you are everything that I say about our elite athletes in this whole OCR world. One of the things I always loved about, like when X Games all had that big boom when it first started, was all those guys and gals that were participating in there. They were always so supportive of each other, and they were always so approachable by anyone. You know, they were just, like you said, they were like your buddies already, even before you knew it, you know, and you have that, you know, where, along with a lot of other of our elite athletes in this OCR world, you know, you're just so approachable and immediately you feel like a buddy, you know, so well done on.
I would say the same about you, Sean. You're the best. You make it so easy to talk to everybody, and you're the one that opens those doors. I mean, that precedent is set. So I appreciate that. I'm just following along with the precedent that's set before me.
Yeah, that's kind of you, but you guys are the ones that prove everything that I say to those people. Okay, so it's time for my fun questions I always have for my guests before I let you out of here. One is a quote that was passed down to me. The story goes, it's a gentleman named Craig. I got to visit him in the hospital just before he passed away of cancer. His family told me when he was diagnosed for this last time, he adopted this quote, which became a motto for him. And it became a motto for me. I brought it back to Mother Nation. And over the years, they made it so popular that it actually became a song by Darius Rucker. Now, you were at our Nevada event where we had nothing to do with it, but Darius Rucker was literally across the street in the amphitheater at night and sung that song. So all the mothers got that's just cosmic, beautiful. Okay. But, so I always like to ask my guests this question. When was the last time you did something for the first time? When was it? What was it?
Like I said, I kind of live in that space, trying to do things for the first time. I'm going to answer with this year, and you kind of spoke to it. It's I really went and I tried the mountains and ran the mountains and ran them, didn't try and sneak and hobble down them. So I'm pretty proud of that. I tried to run the mountains, downhill, uphill, ran the mountains this year. So the first race was in April of this year. So that was the last time. And I tried to do something for the first time, but I couldn't do it. So we're going to try again this next year with 100 miles in 24 hours. We'll try.
Yeah, every time you try, that's a first time. So well done on that also. And I encourage everybody that's listening, at least once a week, first time. It could be as simple as hugging a stranger, but that's life to the fullest, man, when you're first time experiences. My last question to you. Okay. Hanna, you're out there being your awesome self, maybe on the trail, running about, and you come across this lamp on the ground. You pick up the lamp and do what everybody does when they pick up a lamp, dust it off. Out pops me, the genie in the lamp. Been in there for trillions and zillions of centuries. So happy that you finally freed me. Hanna, I'm not going to give you 3 wishes. I'm going to give you the ultimate gift. The ultimate gift is, in this moment, you have the undivided attention of the world. In this moment, Hanna, the whole world stops what they're doing and they're listening to you. What do you say to the world in this moment?
I say to the world, you are capable of hard things. Even if they scare you, you can do them. Keep trying. You are capable of hard things. And you are worthy of those big goals that you have too.
Excellent. Excellent. Again, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again out there somewhere. Like you said, if you come to Utah, let me know. If I'm home, we'll definitely come up and support.
I'll come find you, Sean. I gotta come support you. That's what I'm saying. About my crew, about you guys, I want to come support you.
Again, it's going to sound corny, but watching you be your best is a huge support to me, and I think a blessing to the world. So you just keep doing that.
I'll do my best. I promise.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank you, Sean.
Hanna Carta. You can find Tough Mudder on Facebook and Twitter. That will be @ToughMudder, or on Instagram, also @ToughMudder. Please remember you can find this podcast, No Excuses, on wherever you listen to podcasts. Guys, subscribe. Let me know what you like, what you're not liking, and I will be including you as much as possible and even more in the future.
Inspirational.
Be inspired.
Inspire.
No excuses.
Motivational.
Be motivated.
Motivate. No excuses.
No whining.
No quitting. Overcome.
No excuses.
Community. Teamwork.
Tough Mudder.
Tougher together.
No excuses.